welcome. Today we are going to be discussing the Transcendental Christ and how to extract the mystical meaning and the psychological interpretation out of scriptures, out of the holy books or the Helios books. And we're going to be reading from God, Man, Word Made Flesh, George W. Carey, as well as Who is This King of Glory, Alvin Boyd Kuhn, as well as reading from the New Testament. And we're going to be, along the way, extracting the spiritual essence, or vaporizing, as Marsilio Ficino would say. We're going to be fermenting the grapes, crushing the grapes, and extracting the wine, or the elixir. Life is a constant process of becoming more subtle. As we descend into this dense realm, our bodies transmute and evaporate and extract the soul from matter so that it can be liberated once again. So, start with St. Matthew. It says, the book of generations of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham begot Isaac, and Isaac begot Jacob. Now this whole paragraph here where it says, and Judas begat Phares, and Zerah of Thamar, and Phares begat Esrom, and Esrom begat Aram. As we go through all of this, this is related to the mysteries of Genesis, because it's showing the generations of man, or the seed, or the essence, or the Christ, because the Christ, or the Jesus Christ, who's the son of David, is talking about a psychophysiological fact. It's talking about a transcendental spiritual truth. So when we're going through all the family, of course, we're starting with Genesis. We're starting with the generation relating with, humans' ability to procreate, the mysteries of sex, the mysteries of creation, mysteries of manifestation. And it has to do with the fact that deity manifests from the eternal omnipotent rays of wisdom and love, the two transcendental male-female duplicate of the one. So the one became the two, wisdom and love. And here we have the generations of the emanations of the spiritual planes or realms that emanate from that supreme two. So please watch the video of Adam and Eve astropsychology to really see in depth that even when it's discussing these historical generations, what it's talking about is Genesis, a generation within you, the generation of the alchemical process that relates with the Sephiroth, Malkuth and Yesod, physical realm and astral plane, which relate to the sexual energy and how it manifests in the physical body. So in the book, George W. Carey, he talks about the I in motion is T, or crossification, because you see the body is the cross. When we extend our arms straight out, we can see that the body's a cross. This is the cross that the light of the sun is crucified on as manifesting physical entities here in the realm. He says the I in motion is T, or crossification. The T cross, we say, so when we put I and T together, I would be 1, which isn't in itself a number, but the foundation. And it also is I as in the self, and we have the T. And we put the I and the T, we get the cross. It. And we're always saying it rains, or it's hot outside, or what does it matter? And we have to ask, what is it? When we say it rains, it is cold, it is all right. What do we mean by it? Who knows? Some say the weather, others natural phenomena. Very well then, what do we mean by the weather or natural phenomenon? Why just say it, of course? It does not progress. It does not need to. It forever manifests, operates, differentiates, and presents different aspects or viewpoints of itself. But these different phases are neither good, better, nor best, neither bad nor worse, simply different shades and colorings of the one and only intelligence. And this one and only intelligence is what this book that we're about to read, St. Matthew, is going to be talking about. The one and only intelligence that manifests here in the physical plane of existence from the transcendental planes of existence, which are the counter space or non-existent realms. So when we're talking about it, we're talking about that intelligence. Notice the word intelligence has the word IT in it. It does not progress. It does not need to. It forever manifests, operates, differentiates, and presents different aspects or viewpoints of itself. But these different phases are neither good, better, nor best, neither bad nor worse, simply different shades and colorings of the one and only intelligence. So this it that eternally manifests and operates and differentiates is the eternal consciousness, and he should be called Brahman, the supreme Brahman, or Krishna, or Christ, the Logos. And this eternal it manifests and differentiates and operates in forms. We happen to be the physical aspect of one of the forms, and we have eternal eyes in all subtle realms of existence. But here we have the IT, the it, crossified to a body. Now the birth of Jesus Christ was on this wise. When as his mother Mary was espoused to Joseph before they came together, she was found a child of the Holy Ghost. Then Joseph, which is Saturn, her husband, being a just man, notice just. Saturn rules justice. Joseph being a just man. And Saturn, that justice, that time, is the holder of the divine prakriti, or physical realm, which manifests and gives birth to the Christ, or the it. Then Joseph, her husband, being a just man and not willing to make her a public example, was minded to put her away privately. Now, Mary's the virgin consciousness. It's the stillness within. And when we find the stillness, we find a need to put it away privately, because we come to a consciousness of ourselves where we really find out who we truly are. And we're quick to privately put away this virgin consciousness. We have a renewal. We find the purest part of ourselves within, the part of ourselves that will give birth to that Christ factor. But while he thought on these things, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a dream, saying, Joseph, thou son of David, fear not to take unto thee Mary thy wife, for that which is conceived in her is the Holy Ghost. Well, mysteries of the widow's son, we have the son is always impregnating the physical realm of existence with life, and it appears to disappear. Essentially, it's the invisible Father giving birth to life through the physical realm. These stories have to be looked at from 7 different perspectives. On the anagogical level, we take ourselves to a higher level of understanding and understand the mysteries of the scripture from a transcendental point of view. Now we can see this as, of course, biochemically in the body, as the pituitary and pineal gland producing the oil, and then that oil produces the seed that needs to rise. Or you can also see this as the story of, life in and of itself. We have the transcendental on scene espousing, Joseph time, within the physical realm is born the Christ on the crossification of the body, within the manger, within the womb of Mary, which represents the transcendental virgin consciousness within us, the pure state. While the angel explains to him, fear not, because these angels are angles of light. These angels or angles come to us from different points of the ether and allow us to pick up on certain subtle aspects of consciousness that give us an action. So for example, you come to a part of your life that you found out that your consciousness is giving birth to this new being, and you don't know what to do. There's a temptation to look at it from the logical point of view or to deny its existence. But then when that angelic impulse comes through and tells you it's okay to move forward on the path, that is in the same way that this is explaining if we extract the psychological meaning from it. And she shall bring forth a son, and thou shalt call him Jesus, for he shall save his people from their sins. Because this redeeming factor within is the physical, well, I would say it's the seed that manifests within is the Jesus or the Yitzhutz, the oil, the fish. If we read George W. Carey, we understand that on a biochemical level, the seed is born in the solar plexus, and Jesus meaning fish or itches, because this oily substance smells or takes a pungent smell of fish. We also know that fish relates to the sexual fluids and the mysteries of creation. So when we're looking at this, we have to understand that he's going to bring forth the Son, Jesus, which is the seed, the redeeming factor within you, the Christ consciousness, the awareness, the Atman, the stillness within, that produces, that virgin consciousness produces the psychophysical germ or seed that physically, when retained, redeems and purifies the physical entity, the mental entity, and the emotional entity, or the four bodies of sin. It purifies them of the defects and allows the soul to be reunited with its creator, or its cosmo creator, or its divine angel, or its demigod. Now all this was done that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken of, Lord, by the prophet, saying, Behold, a virgin shall be with child, and shall bring forth a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which being interpreted is God with us. Because the mysteries of the scriptures are all trying to explain the incarnation of spirit into physical matter. So Emmanuel means God within man. So it's the ever-redeeming Christ intelligence, or the it, that manifests within the physical reality. Now that Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod, the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, Where is this that the born King of the Jews? For we have seen the star in the east, and are come to worship him. When Herod the king had heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And he had gathered all chief priests and scribes of the people together. He demanded of them where Christ should be born. And they said unto him, In Bethlehem of Judea. For thus it is written by him the prophet, And thus Bethlehem in the land of Judah are not the least among the princes of Judah. For out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people of Israel. That's the internal governor, the eternal wise man, the Christ spirit that once is activated within, governs the faculties of the mind, the emotions, and the physical actions of the body. Now, King Herod represents the Herod, animal ego. Jesus, the higher mind. Or the child within. Or the seed. Or the son. Now Herod, in times of Herod, Herod is like the negative aspects of the celestials. We have winter, we have the raging dark aspect, the negative aspect of the sun, but we have the sun in and of itself is Jesus, the higher mind, the child within, the seed, the redeeming factor that's born within the manger. I want to make sure that everyone can see the board okay. I apologize, I may have to use some more dark ink. Let me use this blue one. Okay, cool. Grab one. Okay. And they say unto him, in Bethlehem by Judea, for thus is written by the prophet, and thou, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not the least among the princes, for out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people Israel. Then Herod, when he had privily called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search diligently for the young child. Because the animal lower ego of the self is always trying to look to destroy the inner Christ or the inner child within that's being born within the manger. The inner animal impulses are going to try to feed off that energy every month when the seed is born in the plexus. Those dark entropic forces, or the animal ego, is going to be searching to kill it, as we do in our behavior, whether it's our actions, our emotions, or our thoughts. We're always seeking to kill that redeeming factor that's being born within. Then Herod, when he had privily called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search diligently for the young child. That ye have gone him, bring me word again, that I may come and worship him also. When they had heard the king, they departed, and lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. These are the three wise men. The three wise men being the positive kingly aspects, unlike King Herod, the animal aspect, which is seeking to kill. These ones are seeking to worship. It's the inner wise mind, the inner archetypes within that, the wise use of the mental faculty, emotion, and physical action that are trying to redeem and worship the Christ within. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. And when they came unto the house, they saw the young child with Mary, his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And they had opened their treasures. They presented him gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh. Now these are solar symbols. And the being warned of God in a dream that they had not returned to Herod, they departed into their own country another way. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, arise, and take the young child and his mother, and flee into Egypt. Because as the fluid descends into the solar plexus, produces the seed in the manger, it flees down to Egypt. Egypt is below the kidneys and starts flowing and creating that Christic impulse that needs to be transmuted back up into the spine, back into Jerusalem or Judea. And being warned of God in a dream that they should not return to Herod, the animal ego, so not returning to your base emotions or base actions or your psychological animal behavior. That, once this Christ is being produced, there's a motive, an emotion, an impulse to avoid the inner animal within, which should be represented by Herod. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, arise and take the child and his mother, flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed into Egypt. And there was the death of Herod, and was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken to the Lord by the prophet, saying, out of Egypt I have called my son. Because out of the lower nature of mind, out of the slavery or the bondage of the physical body, the Son of God is manifested or tilled within. The alchemist extracts the magnum opus or the elixir of life, which is none other than truth, beauty, and love, the three aspects of the Creator. And Herod, or the animal impulses of the mind, or the physical nature of the body, always seems to be looking to destroy this spiritual essence within us as it appears. And some can go a long way by degenerating this process where this Christ is being born within them and delaying it and delaying it. Well, Saturn is destroying us. Every day we live, we're closer and closer to physical death. And we only have a certain amount of time to do the psychological work and the alchemical work that we can while we have the opportunity to work on these spiritual, emotional bodies, so that once we cross over, we can utilize the merits that we utilized and gained to help on the other side. Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise man, was exceeded wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem, and in all the coast thereof, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremy the prophet, saying, in Ramah there was a voice heard. Now Ramah is the cerebrum, the Ram, or the Ram. So when it explains something like this, we have to look to Aries. Understand it's speaking of, biologically speaking, the cerebrum is where we access our higher thoughts. So in Rama, a voice was heard. We hear the voice within ourselves of truth coming from the higher mind. And we're all in despair when King Herod is killing the firstborn. Now, killing the firstborn also relates to killing the left side of the brain, or killing thought, because thought is considered the firstborn. And once the firstborn is killed, the Christ is extracted. Then Herod was dead. Behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in the dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, arise and take the young child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel, for they are dead which sought the young child's life. So there's no more, once you meditate and start living the contemplative life of purity, there comes a time where the animal ego stops seeking. You kill the animal ego. This is the next initiation of psychological drama, where now there's no need to run from Herod. The animal ego has been nullified or dead. They go into the land for the dead, which sought them. The young child's life is dead. And Joseph arose and took the young child and his mother, and came into the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus did reign in Judea in the room of his father Herod, he was afraid to go thither, notwithstanding, being warned of God in a dream, he should turn aside into the parts of Galilee. And he came and dwelt in a city called Nazareth, that he might be fulfied was spoken by the prophets, he shall be called a Nazarene. In those days come John the Baptist, preaching in the wilderness of Judea, and saying, repent ye, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. For this he that was spoken of by the prophet Esaias, saying, the voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare ye the way of the Lord, make his path straight. And the same John had his raiment of camel's hair, and a leathern girdle about his loins, and his meat was locusts and wild honey. Now, George W. Carey explains that John the Baptist is the oil before it's it's in a wild, chaotic state before it baptizes the Christ. Now, the Jordan River is the spinal column. John the Baptist is the seed before it's baptized into the canal. Once it's in the canal, the energy is now from a wild state in the wilderness to a peaceful, calm state. Now, John the Baptist represents that kinetic potential, and then Jesus represents the potential reached. John the Baptist is also the higher intellect, or the higher human mind, that turns toward the inner Christ within, which is the invisible being, or the substratum that enlivens us, enlivens every atom within creation. And it's the part of us, it's the enlightened intellect. So when we're talking about John the Baptist, The higher intellect points to the inner Christ within and allows it to be recognized. Without John the Baptist, we wouldn't be able to recognize and make way or make the appropriate changes in our life to make it so that we reach the full potential of the incarnation of the it, or the intelligence within life. And the same John had his raiment of camel's hair and a leathern girdle about his loins, and his meat was locusts and wild honey, because he's the initiate. He's the one that is transmuting the sexual energy. The camel's loin, the locusts and wild honey symbolized of restrictions on diet, overcoming the tongue or the senses in the wilderness, overcoming the animal nature. And with John the Baptist comes within us, we just want to share that truth with everyone. We just want to go and preach the good word. We want to help everyone ascend. It's a great spirit. It's an archetype. And Marsilio Ficino talks about how the archetypes within are all beautiful and alive and within, Jupiter, Zeus, Venus, Aphrodite, Mary Magdalene, the Christ, John, Jesus. All of these spirits or archetypal beings exist within the internal planes of existence and are always working psychologically to create the events in your life to reflect what needs to be done. And they were baptized him in the Jordan, confessing their sins. Now, the Jordan is the spinal column. And when we baptize our energy in the spinal column, we refrain from animal impulse. And what that does is it baptizes the action of sin. You no longer will commit that sin if you continually retain the energy and produce a healing effect upon your nervous system. And your nervous system will rise and nourish. And as that fluid rises to the brain, it overcomes the animal impulses, the animal cells. When Jesus is in the temple preaching to the lower, people that don't know the truth, he's talking to the animal cells and telling them to repent and to transmute into their higher form. So this is taking place celestially, psychologically, biochemically, and also, as Marsilio Ficino would say, transcendentally in the spiritual world. But when he saw many of the Pharisees and Sadducees come to his baptism, he said unto them, O generation of vipers, who hath warned you to flee from the wrath to come. Being forth, therefore, fruits meet for repentance. And think not to say within yourselves, we have Abraham to our father. For I say unto you that God is able of these stones to raise up children of Abraham. And now also the axe is laid unto the root of the tree. Therefore every tree which bringeth forth not good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. I indeed baptize you with water unto repentance, but he that cometh after me is mightier than I, whose shoes I am not worthy to bear. He shall baptize you with the Holy Ghost and with fire. Now, the consciousness that we go to, we start in earth, the body. Once we're a physical entity, we're baptized in water. Actually, when the soul descends into a physical body, it's baptized in earth and water. These are your sinful bodies that you transmute with the inner fire and air that get you to that next stage of consciousness so that you have a more transcendental, subtle body and awareness. You start at earth, automatic, water, truth, air. Take yourself meeting Jesus in the clouds, accessing no thought, accessing control of thought, being able to feel that sense of flying. So John the Baptist baptizes with water. Physical incarnation is the baptism of earth. And he says the Christ or Jesus is coming to baptize us with fire and spirit, because we ascend to these different varieties of consciousness. Earth, we're automatic. Water, we are aware of something, air, we acquire the nature of our inner flight to be able to take inner flight and meet the Christ in the clouds. And then preparing for the baptism of fire, which is when the kundalini, the serpentine fire, rises to the 33 vertebrae into the pineal gland and activates the lamp oil, which is the fire. Once you're baptized with fire, you're purified of all negative actions, any negative emotions, thoughts, and actions, as well as karmic sins, ancestral sins, karmic ties. All kinds of things are purified in the baptism of fire as you're redeemed from this earth and water nature. The water is desires, the earth is impulse, it's automatic. It's our nullification. Saturn, that's just, in a sense, Saturn rules over Earth. It's our bones. We are entombed in the earth. The tomb is a womb and a tomb. We have the tomb and the womb. Souls die when they come here. When a soul dies, it descends in the physical body. When Adam and Eve were eating the apple, it says, if you were to eat of this apple, you will surely die. Well, they didn't die. We are here. But death means spiritual incarnation. Death means physical incarnation. When we die here, it means spiritual life, to be born. So it's very contradicting, but please watch the first video, Mysteries of Life and Death, on my channel, where I explain how when the soul descends into the physical realm, that is the death of the soul. And the resurrection of the soul is when we die here and resurrect into the transcendental plane of existence. And now also the axe is laid onto the root of the trees. Therefore every tree which bring forth not forth good fruit is hewed down and cast into the fire. I indeed baptize you with water unto repentance. So once you're baptized with water, you start feeling, you feel remorse for the negative actions that you cause people, the suffering, and you reach your emotional state, not just the physical instinctual, you're moving now to the emotions. And then finally, the Christ is the will, intelligent will. One that come after me is mightier than I, whose shoes I am not worthy to bear, Pisces. He shall baptize you with the Holy Ghost and with fire. Now, the Holy Ghost is the impersonal effulgence that's everywhere at all times, the omnipotent aspect of the Creator. And then Bhagavan, or let's say the Father, is the personal aspect of the Creator. And then the Son, or the Christ, would be the local aspect of the Creator that's seated within all of our hearts, the eternal witness, whose fan is in his hand, and he will thoroughly purge his floor and gather his wheat into the garner. But he will burn up the shaft with unquenchable fire, because through fire we purify, and fire comes from extracting the fire from the waters of the sexual energy. When we continually live our lives through just seeking orgasm and sexual pleasure, it gets harder and harder to reach that pleasure. And we become more and more degenerated into the point where we seek that out more and more in places that we would not have sought it before. So the whole point is to allow the seed to remain within you and to share love with a partner and to allow the energy to combine and rise into the spine and ignite the powers of the heart so you can go through the 4 baptisms of earth, water, air, and fire through alchemical regeneration. Through putting to death King Herod, or lust, the serpent of lust and desire, and igniting chastity. And that chastity purifies your heart, and that heart will purify your fluids, and your water and earth will be saved, which will be retained and baptized by the electrical circuit of the lamp. When that oil reaches the pineal gland, it bridges the gap between the pineal gland and the pituitary gland, or the positive and negative, and neutral is born, and equilibrium is produced. And through that equilibrium, you become a shepherd. And through being a shepherd, you're able to help others. You activate within the Jupiterian hero, which saves himself and helps to save others as well. And John the Baptist is kind of symbolized by, I would say, Jupiterian hero. And Jesus answering said unto him, suffer it to be so now, for thus it becometh us to fulfill all righteousness. Then he suffered him. And Jesus, when he was baptized, went up straightway out of the water. And lo, the heavens were opened unto him. And he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and lighting upon him. And lo, a voice from heaven saying, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." Because once that seed rises to the brain, and you know who you are, just like Jacob wrestled with an angel all the way up Jacob's ladder, and when you climbed up the ladder, you saw God face to face. Here Jesus is getting baptized, and the dove is descending, he's seeing God face to face. You activate your personal relationship with your Creator, personal relationship with the Lord, the eternal it that George W. Carey was speaking of. That is the intelligence that operates in all of existence. Love, wisdom, and beauty. We're going to end this with a chapter from Who is This King of Glory by Alvin Boyd Kuhn. Chapter 1, Faith Weds Folly. To the contentious student who will give to the matter sufficient time and reflection, it becomes a conviction that the most devastating cultural calamity that has befallen the human race in all its history was a degradation of the esoteric spiritual purport of ancient scripture into the debased literal and historical sense, entailing centuries of mental benignness and spiritual thwarting that took place at about the 3rd century of the Christian era. And in this catastrophic conversion of cosmography, evolutionary pictography, and racial history over into the alleged factual occurrence, the single feature most signally fruitful of age-long fatuity was the transformation of the dramatic figure of the Christos, or divine essence of man's nature, over into a historical person. It is not too much to say that the withering wind of this distorted doctrine spread its blight upon all the same comprehension of the sublime message of ancient sacred literature over all the 16th century since the fatal epoch. Indeed, the truth of the situation warrants the statement that the injection of a living man into the spiritual drama in the place of the personified divine ego in man has held the rational mind of Western world in grip of the most errant superstition to be found in the history of civilized humanity. This work will amass the data to support the sharp aversion that this was the central item in the entire debasal of theological systematic trough in world history. The cause that led to the factual transference of character from the dramatic personification of an element in human consciousness into an alleged man of historical identification will be the essential theme of this essay. Power of tradition. He's basically explaining that Christ is the eternal principle in man, is an element in consciousness that is the first emanated energy of the Father. As I was watching a video by Santos a couple days ago, and he explained it really well. He explained that Christ is the first emanated energy or intelligence from the Father. And when you look at it biochemically, you can see that the cerebrum is the Father who art in heaven, and the cerebrum produces that oil which produces the seed, or the sun, which redeems the physical aspect of the human body. We also must redeem our psychological as well as our spiritual aspects. Through Christ 1,000 times in Bethlehem be born, but not within thyself. Thy soul shall be forlorn. The cross on Golgotha shall look it to in vain, unless within thyself it is set up again, by Angelo Silius, the medieval mystic. So, when we're reading the New Testament, we have to take a look at it from a psychological perspective. Try to find out how the drama of Christ emulates an internal psychological process that takes place within. And we can use astrotheology as a guide point in understanding the sine wave to be able to understand what exactly it is that we need to accomplish. Now, I want to pull up something here really quick. Okay, so we'll look at John the Baptist. So, mysteries of John the Baptist, alchemy and astrotheology. John, or Ionos, is the fluid or ointment that comes down the spinal column. So before that oil is rising, it's in a wild or like chaotic state. That's why John is there in the wilderness with the locusts and wild honey, hence a wild man, but a wild man with enlightened intellect. And that points toward the inner consciousness within, which is the Christ. He baptized with water, the Christ baptized with spirit. In meditation, you can go through these 4 alchemical processes by becoming silent. We move from earth, automatic consciousness of just thinking, to awareness, earth, to emotional, water, and then inner flight, air, to the Kundalini rises to the brain, ignites the fire, and you see the golden fiery lights. That's the baptism of fire on the level of meditation. Now, this is anagogical, biochemical, and it has to do with the incarnation of the physical into the physical body as well. So his food is locusts and honey. So the pineal gland and pituitary gland secrete milk and honey. So alchemically speaking, locusts and honey are represented by these glands. And the fluids combine in the sacrum and produce the sexual fluids of the body, or the hormones. And when we transmute these hormones, the body becomes in harmony. And when we're in harmony, we refrain from doing actions that harm others or harm ourselves. We begin to try to find a way to, I would say, nullify our negative aspects, or put a nullification to the animal behaviors that are coming from within. The reason why is because we're humans and we have intelligence, and this intelligence is always looking to improve upon itself. The higher Sephiroth of the tree of life, Kether, Chokmah, Banah, are always trying to perfect Malkuth, and physical beings here in Malkuth are being perfected by the higher celestial influences of the planets, the zodiac, and the eternal creator. So John is before Jesus. John says, I baptize you with water. The one comes after me baptized with fire and spirit. See, John's the initiation of the water purification. That water purifies you. You start anew. It's almost as if you come from the automated state of automatic animal consciousness. And then finally, you're not perfect yet, but now you're starting to understand, oh crap, like what was I doing? I was just lost. I've at least come to a new point in your life where you feel like you're kind of resurrected or psychologically born again. So first of all, what happens is all thought errors are eliminated when you're baptized by the water. We forgive ourselves of past mistakes, and there's a purifying of the consciousness back to its natural state. That wild, chaotic energy becomes nullified and pure. John was a child of nature, of the wilderness, and preaching to turn to God, or the cerebrum, the higher mind. John, the archetype, purifies us. He's an archetype within us that allows us to turn towards the Christ, or the transformational fire, which is that air and spirit. And we're talking about breath or air. We're not talking about the air of the breath, but we're talking about the Atman, or the spirit within that produces all of the elements. So John is the natural man with an enlightened intellect. So he's the part of our consciousness, an element within us that recognizes the higher self within and looks up. Just like Arjuna looks up towards Krishna, John Baptist looks up towards Jesus. And then Jesus and John have that kind of brotherly cousin relationship, hence the mysteries of Gemini. And John within us recognizes the higher self within and points up. Or it takes us, the part of our mind that looks up towards the heavens and sees nothing but divine law. The conscious mind recognizes the Christ within and turns towards it to continue to prepare the psyche for the transformation of the inner fire. So the inner being has a higher aspect and a human aspect. We have our human nature that can fall into demonic nature or into a Christ-like angelic nature. So the human aspect, once enlightened by truth, points to the divine aspect of the Christ. And the Christ is the word, or the manifested intelligence, the creation of all beings and worlds. When John's in prison, it's a symbol of our lower mind, or the ego. King Herod imprisons the spiritual nature of our mind, or John. How many times our spiritual mind is is helping us be on the path and understand what we need to do. And then all of a sudden, King Herod, the wife of King Herod, symbolizing the negative emotional aspects of the nature, comes in, deceives the king to, all right, let's kill him, let's put an end to him. Slices off the head of the John the Baptist, symbolizing, cutting away from our higher intellect nature and starting to fall into the same behaviors that we did in our automatic nature, our earth behaviors, our automatic earth consciousness level behaviors. So we have to look at this from various different points of view to understand exactly what these scriptures are trying to show on a physical level, spiritual level, astrological, you name it, because all is connected from within and from without, and the universal creator has imprinted his thumbprint into the creation, and that's why this appears. So here's a chapter from George W. Carey, John the Baptist. He explains the mysterious circumstances connected with the Bible story of John the Baptist and the information given in the Smith's Bible Dictionary prove the wholly divine origin of that which was called John, but which means oil in Greek. John's father was said to be a priest of Abia or Abijah. The letter in Hebrew means whose father is Jehovah. Jehovah is the upper brain, the most high, or the cerebrum. The crystalline dew referred to in medieval Hebrew before the oil is raised by the seed, thus giving 1/10 tithe to the Lord. It is called the natural or wild, not cultivated like wild flowers or wild honey. So John was a wild man, a native. A parable? Most certainly. His food was locusts and wild honey. The pineal gland and pituitary body secretes fluids called milk and honey. Locust means destructive devourer, a glutton. All thy tree of life and fruit of seed, shall the locust, which means sex desire, consume. The reader will please remember that the Bible is a secret doctrine, or that which is within and not without. History is a record of outward things. John is the natural man, was an eater of the fruit of the tree of life, with the girdle of camel's hair, which pertains to the external male organ. But John, like the prodigal son, changed his mind and made it easy to say, one cometh after me, the latchet of whose shoes, Pisces, feet, fish, I am unworthy to unloose, and latchet. And shoes are emblems of the cover or cup swaddling cloth. The oil in the seed when born is covered or protected by a crust of mineral salts, which when anointed by being baptized in John or Jordan is loosened. He that saveth his life shall loosen it. See mistranslation of scripture, in order that the shell may fall apart when the seed, Jesus, goes over the cross. Thus, Father, remove the cup or cover or latchet from me, in order that the precious material may ascend into the pineal gland. So when this precious fluid ascends up the 33 vertebrae of the spine into the pineal and pituitary gland, it produces a psychological change. And now you take a look at yourself and you're like, wow, 3 years ago, I was doing that. Wow, I couldn't even imagine doing that, because you're always psychologically changing, because this Christ is saving you. It's salving you. It's salving you from within. It's purifying us of our animalistic impulses. And we can finally use this inner Christ, which baptizes with fire, to evaporate the waters of our being, the chemistry, and to evaporate it into the cloud. And that cloud will produce the thunder, or the permanent point of consciousness, which will be retained. And that intelligence will be retained and allow us to pass over up into the celestial planes of existence, so that we can get past the moon. The moon, when we die, the moon is the instigator of our purgatory of the soul, and doesn't let us just go straight into the higher planes of Mercury and Jupiter, Venus and Mars. We have to stop in the moon, and whatever essence or gold that we've extracted on our spiritual journey here on earth will give us the ability to overcome and pass the moon. We have to pay those coins to the moon so that we can go to the higher realms of existence. And we shouldn't be vainly searching to be like, I want to get to these higher planes of existence. I want to leave the physical realm. we have to understand that, just like George W. Carey said, that it is eternal, it never progresses. The eternal Krishna or Christ within, this is all for its pleasure. It is just an eternal, beautiful, infinite progression. We start at do, then we go to re, then mi, fa, so, la, ti, and then silence. We go back. When we go down into the dense realms, we evaporate and become more subtle. This is an ongoing process. And what it's doing is it's producing a multitude of beings. Just like George W. Carey was saying, the eternal it always manifests, operates, and differentiates. The one becomes the many, and we are the many. And we should hold on to this and respect our eternal connection, our eternal hereditary. That's why I see in this book of the Bible, in the first chapter, it was talking about, and he was the son of this family, and this was the son of them, and the generations of David. It was trying to explain the soul's connection to Abraham, the father within, the cerebrum, which is the physical biochemical manifestation of the father without, or the eternal father or Kether. Notice the similarities between father or Kether the father, or the ancient of days, the one that emanates this intelligence, the Christ. And this Christ is the consciousness within us that tells us to do right. When we're doing something wrong, it comes and screams at us. But usually the lower animal, King Herod, is always louder than the still small voice. So the work of the initiate is to purify the noise and to reawaken our access to the connection to the inner still small voice, or the higher consciousness, which is the sun within, the spiritual sun within. So I was gonna one more thing, but looks like, all right, guys, I think we're gonna call it a day, and love to see you next time. Thanks.